Welcome to this fourth and final session for Meet the Experts of TNO. Today we will talk about AI, the solution or the challenge. My name is Joke Welte and today I'm your moderator. So, some things before we start. Please all turn off your microphone and your camera. All the questions you have today, please put them in the Q&A. We will make sure that they will be visible after this session. At the end of this session, we will try to answer as many of your questions as possible, but also afterwards, we will try to answer the rest and also publish them in the Q&A. This meeting will be recorded, and also the recording will be shared with everyone who was registered afterwards. Now, what's the plan of today? We will start with a short introduction of Olaf Optenkamp on the topic. Then Jan-Pieter Paardekooper will talk about AI solutions and challenges, followed by Riccardo Dona from JRC about is artificial intelligence ready for safety critical applications. That will be followed by opportunities and solutions of Jan-Pieter Paardekooper, and Olaf give a wrap up afterwards. The final 10 minutes of this session will be the Q&A, so please put all your questions also in this Q&A. Then we will get started with Olaf. So please, Olaf, I will give the floor to you.
Great, thanks a lot, Joke. It's great to have you here for the fourth time again in this Meet the Expert series, where we do have the. See if I can come to the next slide. Where we discuss safety assessment of automated driving. And we looked to this complex system of an automated driving system in a vehicle, possibly in interaction with a driver, which could be a human and or a robot driver, driving in the very complex complexity of the real world with all its variations. And the question that we try to answer is how can we come up with a methodology to answer the question whether this complete system of automated driving in that complexity is safe or unsafe. We started the first webinar on the definition of safety, and we then indicated that it would be good to follow Holnagel on that in making a distinction between safety 1, a state where as few things as possible go wrong, very much applicable to collision avoidance, active safety systems, passive safety systems, but also to consider, especially for automated driving, safety 2, the perspective to ensure that as many things as possible go right. So that was one of the discussions that we had. Last time, we said, okay, if you want to get an understanding of answering that question, is this system safe or not safe, to what reference do we take that metric, this safety metric? And actually, if we look to regulations, we see that we would need to be at least as good as a competent and safe human driver. That's easily said, but how do we actually quantify safe human driving? So that was one of the discussions of last expert meeting, and the discussion also went into if we are able to quantify safe human driving, how high should we set the bar for automated driving systems? Now, what we did not discuss too much in these sessions is the technologies that are under the hood of automated driving. And I mentioned only 2 of them, V2X communication, so the possibility to exchange information from the infrastructure to the vehicle or between vehicles to get a proper or a better possibility to anticipate on things that might happen on the road in front of you. And today's topic, artificial intelligence, a technology that is already quite common in sensor perception algorithms, but that is also being used in road user motion prediction and motion planning software. And it's especially to have a look today on how do we include this technology that is under the hood of this automated driving system in safety assessment. And the fundamental question still is how to ensure the safe and responsible deployment of these technologies onto the public road in different countries, in all these different scenarios and the large variations that occur there. And we know that AI for certain applications certainly is a solution, but what are then the challenges associated with AI in view of safety assessment? And I'm very glad that today we will also get a view of the regulators on that. So that brings me to handing over the word to Jan-Pieter to first discuss more on the challenges part of this.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ola, for this nice introduction. And indeed, if we talk about safety of automated vehicles, we need to also talk about safety of AI, because higher levels of automation require more and more machine intelligence, because the machine needs to do complex tasks. So that brings its own challenges, the use of AI in vehicles.
Yes.
Thanks. This in the first expert session, we discussed that automated vehicles should not make the same mistakes that humans do, but they also should not introduce robot mistakes. And the challenges related to AI are mainly about not making robot mistakes. And artificial intelligence includes many different techniques. From expert systems to machine learning to deep learning. Most of the popularity of artificial intelligence in recent years has come from the deep learning revolution, which includes sophisticated methods like transformers and foundation models that are able to leverage a lot of data to perform very complex tasks. But with this complexity also come their own challenges. So if we look at the different types of AI that there are. So when AI started as a topic with the advent of computers, the first types of AI were symbolic. They're now called good old-fashioned AI or GoFi. And the way they worked is that experts put in knowledge, and in combination with data, the system would provide answers. This was done in a very explainable way, because all the expert knowledge went in there. But these systems had a difficult time dealing with very complex problems. So, for example, the chess computers that were able to defeat the human champion. Deep Blue was mostly based on symbolic AI, but these systems were not able to play a more difficult, complex game as Go. For that, we need a different type of AI, which is data-based AI or machine learning, which works differently. So in this case, we do not provide knowledge to the system, but we provide the answers. So together with data and answers, the system itself determines, hey, what are the rules, so to say? What are the correlations in the data that bring these answers to the data? So, for example, you give them images together with labels in order to determine objects in the image. And these systems work on a statistical level. So there are there's no longer knowledge from experts in there. The system does that itself. But the problem is that means that we do not necessarily understand how the system came to its answers. So it's no longer explainable, but it is capable of dealing with a lot of complexity and solve very complex problems. And this also has its effect on how we judge the performance of these systems. So for the older symbolic AI, it was not only possible to test the performance on different kinds of problems, but also inspect the model, because it was on a symbolic level, we could understand what was in there. That's no longer true for the statistical machine learning, deep learning kind of models, where the system itself is so complex that we no longer can inspect it itself. And the only way we can judge its performance is by testing, which is the reason for many of the challenges that we will discuss. And this also brings me to the first takeaway of this presentation. If there's one thing that you get away with after this session, I hope it is this, and that is that there's a semantic gap when using machine learning algorithms like deep learning. These systems have very impressive performance, almost human-like, or in some cases even better than humans, but they work on a statistical level, which is different than how humans think. So if we look at a classification algorithm, for example, that classifies objects in images, it can identify many different objects inside an image, even better than some humans do. But the only thing it does is it converts pixels to labels. So it has a label of a cat, but the system doesn't understand the concept of what a cat is, the fact that a cat is an animal, that it's furry, that it starts to purr when you give it attention, etc. That's not something that a deep learning system can learn. Although when we humans think of a cat, that's something we immediately understand. And this semantic gap is one of the reasons why safety assessment of AI is so difficult. So that brings me to the unique challenges that the use of AI inside automated vehicles gives to safety. So in general, what we would like to know is whether a system performs according to its requirements in the environment that it will be deployed in, and we do that by testing. But when using AI, the environment is complex. The system itself is very complex. Requirements are getting complex. So also the testing is in the end also very complex. So I will go a bit deeper into all of these challenges one by one. So first, the environment. The environment that an automated vehicle needs to drive in is extremely complex. It is what we call an open world, so a lot of unknown things might happen. So we need to understand when the system is capable of performing well and when it's not. The problem is that when we define an operational design domain, so the domain in which the system should perform well, we as humans do that in a symbolic way. So for example, for pedestrian detection, we would like to detect all pedestrians. So whether they're male or female, whether their skin color, whether in a wheelchair, etc. But when we train a deep learning system, all it sees is pixels. It doesn't understand the concept of pedestrians as we do it because of this semantic gap. So we just give it examples in the data and it learns to detect pedestrians from that. But how do we know whether it's sufficiently good at detecting pedestrians? We only know the performance of the system on a test set. So it's able to, in this stack of images, it's able to detect 96% of all pedestrians. And how do we know whether that's sufficient to judge the performance of the system in the real world? Because the performance is then based on what we see as the concept of a pedestrian. And the second challenge is related to the requirements. So there's a lot of requirements to an automated vehicle on the road. So of course it should be safe. That's what we're mainly talking about. But it should also be comfortable. It should be at its destination on time, should adhere to the traffic rules, etc. These requirements are all set on a symbolic level. So Think, for example, about traffic rules. These are the rules of how we should behave in traffic, that every traffic participant should adhere to. But if we give a system a lot of examples of how humans behave in traffic and train the most sophisticated deep learning algorithm there is on that, it will not be able to understand traffic rules, the reason why the examples are as they are, because there's no causality in deep learning. They don't understand the why. So even though the system may have almost human-like performance, it doesn't understand traffic rules. So if there is a situation it has never seen before, it cannot go back to these traffic rules and reason about how it should behave, which is it's a question: do we want systems on the road that do not understand traffic rules? And basically the entire previous expert session on competent driving is about this: how do we set requirements to the automated vehicle? So that brings me to the second takeaway. If we would like to safely use AI inside automated vehicles, we need to bridge this semantic gap. We need to go from sub-symbolic to symbolic, because we define requirements and the operational design domain on the symbolic level. And there needs to be an understanding of the AI system on this same level in order to assess the safety of such system. But there's two more challenges left. And what might be the biggest challenge is the system itself. These deep neural networks are very complex systems. They have an insane amount of parameters that need to be trained on lots and lots of data in order to get the impressive performance that we see. But these systems are highly nonlinear and basically a black box. We can look inside, but we don't understand why it gives the answers that it gives, because it's so highly complex. And what a deep neural network essentially does is it maps an input distribution to an output distribution. So the input might be an image, the output a label, or the input might be a scenario, the output is a trajectory through the scenario. But due to this high nonlinearity of the system itself, it's not a given that things that are close in the input distribution are also close in the output distribution. One of the best known examples of this are adversarial attacks of neural networks. By just changing a single pixel in an image, the label can completely change, even though a human does not see any difference in the image itself. So this brings its own challenge to the testing. How do we know what to test if a system is so nonlinear and unstable? The question is what to test and how many tests are sufficient. We cannot, in the case of images and object detection, we cannot test all of the combination of pixels. It's impossible. But if the system is so susceptible to changes in a single pixel, how can you then in the end understand whether the system is safe or not? And also the complexity of the environment. How do you know that we tested enough? That brings me to my final takeaway of the challenges. Due to the complexity of AI, the environment, the system, the requirements, the practice so far has been to leave safety to the validation phase. So the only thing we have is the performance on the test set or the validation set, and that's what we base the safety of the system around. And I think to really, this is probably sufficient for the non-safety critical systems, like, for example, ChatGPT. If ChatGPT makes a mistake, there are no lives at risk. And we do see it's one of the most sophisticated AI systems that we have, and we still see robot mistakes that a human would never make, but such a system does. But if an automated vehicle made these kind of mistakes, lives could be at stake. So leaving AI safety only to this testing phase is probably not a good idea. We need a better understanding of the system itself. And that concludes the challenges of AI. I will now hand over to Riccardo for a view of the legislator.
Yes, so please, Riccardo.
Yes, good morning,
Go
good
ahead.
afternoon, everyone. Okay, let's see.
Yes, it should work.
Okay. Okay, so once again, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot, Jan-Pieter, for setting the scene. Very nice general overview on AI, and also appreciate the cautious approach you're suggesting. Now we have seen basically a sort of general overview. Now I would like to go more into the details of, let's say, more specific AI applications for what concern automated vehicles. Okay, shall I go here? Okay, seems to work. Okay, here is a very introductory slides on what we know about approaches related to design an AV automated vehicle software stack. On the left, you see the traditional, let's say, automation paradigm, where you go from you have sensors. Sensor gives you some evidence. Based on the evidence, you create a plan, an action plan, which is then forwarded to the actuator set. That is, let's say, how general paradigm for automation, general, not only for AVs. This is also what we think is behind many commercial solutions, which now are out there for AVs. Whereas on the right side, you see the extreme AI-based solution, the so-called end-to-end approach, where you basically have a big, gigantic neural network where you fed in sensor data like radar, LiDAR, cameras, whatever. You have typically some convolution layer, then fully connected layers, and you map those sensor data into steering and pedal actions, which a human driver produce based on the same input. So basically, you are training a model to repeat exactly what a human driver, possibly a distribution of human drivers, did, giving that specific sensory input. Now, the good things on the traditional approach, which to a certain extent we could create a parallelism with the good old-fashioned AI Jan-Pieter was talking before, is that it is inherently explainable. So typically, a sensor layer is coded in a way that it will output symbols, which then you can use to create trajectories, which you can investigate. And so you know what you are sending to the actuators. But these require a lot of laborious manual labeling of features and coding of rules. But this also, I mean, sort of versatile because it can combine, say, traditional approaches with artificial intelligence-based one. Whereas on the right, it suffers from being black box. We have seen it before, but on the other side, require much less manual work. What you have to do is to code the network and collect tons of data. In practice, if you want to see what it means with explainability, let's consider a very naive scenario on the left, and you forward the same to both software architecture. What you see is that if you imagine to cut a wire connecting sense to think layer, and you can find there the symbol of traffic light, for instance. And if you know that you coded your planner in a way that given traffic light rules, it will stop or it will pass depending on the traffic light color, then you also can interpret what is going on afterwards in the software stack. The same is not true for end-to-end approaches. So the extreme opposite, where if you imagine to cut a wire and see what is there, you will see an output of a nonlinear function, which you have no clue what it's related to. Now, that is a more sort of a scientific level, but there are also industry positions on the use of AI with regards to automated vehicles. There's a UNEC, so United Nations Economic Commission for Europe Forum, where people like me, so policymakers, will come together to write regulations. And here I'm reporting a public document where industry sort of advertise the current use of AI, depending on the main paradigm here on the left. So supervised learning, unsupervised reinforcement learning, and most common one. We can see that also here the safety function is split into perception, planning, and actuation, sort of similar to the traditional paradigm I was talking about before. We can also see that most of the AI is concentrated into the perception, especially supervised learning, that is most classification and segmentation are most common use case for perception-based AI. But also something started on popping out into the planning layer, but still actuation is sort of relying on traditional, I would say, control engineering-based software. Now, regarding automated vehicles themselves, so as you probably know, it's not either vehicle are conventional or fully automated. There are shades of automation which are stated in SIE standard. Notice that we will never really talk in policy, legal and technical documents. We never refer to autonomous vehicle. We always talk about automated vehicles. And for our as I'm talking right now, we have SIE level 2 vehicles since many years around our streets, who are basically the driver is still responsible for driving task, but it is supported by a assistance system, which can itself rely on AI. As we have seen before, automated emergency braking system was one of the use cases where supervised learning was featured, also ACC, adaptive cruise control, which are part of, let's say, the blue boxes that you see here. So artificial intelligence, as of today, is on public roads, but still a human driver is in charge of the supervision of the system. So AI is supporting through several ADAS, that advanced driver assistance system, the operation of the vehicles, but has not yet taken over, let's say, the driving task and driving responsibility. Things are changing quite quickly. So which is represented in the green boxes, so SIE level 3 and 4, so the so-called automated driving system vehicles, where here the ADS will take care of the driving task and also legal liability in case of accidents. Here, I mean, we are living transition years, which is summarized in this slide. So we are trying to convey what is going on in Europe and in general at the national level for what regards approval of vehicles. I'm not talking about prototypes. I'm talking about a large scale, say, mass market produced vehicles. So we have been working since 2019 to get a framework regulation for automated driving system, which has to be technologically neutral. So at the time, we did not know which would be the winning among between traditional and AI-based systems. So the approach we used was to be as technologically neutral as possible. And we came out after this very huge work with a guideline document which set, let's say, new, I would say, new assessment method in NATM. Which is the backbone of current legislation on AVs. The first one was out in 2020. It was so-called LKS, Automated Lane Keeping System, which is a sort of level 3 system. So the vehicle will be automated, but there is driver as a backup. Despite the system is not fully compliant with level 3, so it can also do minimum risk maneuver. The first actual legislation for drivers was out in Europe in 2022. And then we have recently started our work on having a general legislation covering all use cases, which started out this year at UN level, so pretty much all the world. But also would like not to, overlook the fact that there are higher level automation, because lower level automation will still be there. I'm thinking about the DCAS legislation, so level 2, which is going on right now. Also, what is happening in the United States, so with full self-driving, which is gathering, Tesla technology is gathering much large penetration in the market. And supposedly it is using as version 12 end-to-end approaches. It's still not legal in Europe, but still we see a large market for level 2, given the obviously, the fact it can have a higher penetration than level 3 and level 4. So what I meant with NATM, so new test method, is a way forward from the traditional approval approach, where you would have prescriptive requirements and strict test condition. I think now we can all agree, based also on Jan-Pieter presented before, that it is very not suitable for AI, so for very complex systems. So because it is impossible to have requirements and testing condition which will cover you, allows you to cover any possible say issue and basically use case you can have with AI, given also the AI is very non-linear. So if you change slightly one requirement, you will have completely different outcome. So that is definitely not suitable. It used to be like that because cars used to be mechanical system, which are smooth, robust. Whereas software-based, new feature like automated driving are inherently non-linear and black box. So you need something new, and that something new is the NATM, new assessment test method, which combines testing with also audit phases. So you sort of allows authority to cover design phase of the system, safety assessment procedure, simulations of it testing, but also aftermarket, let's say, in service monitoring and reporting, which is basically rules mandating or manufacturer to report the authority data about the use of the vehicles. The idea is not to collect personal information, of course, but is to validate the technology as it is operating in the real world in the intended environment. So to see whether there is some safety gap that should be addressed as soon as possible. If you want to, think it this way, the traditional type approval scheme was very good for, as I mentioned, mechanical systems. So if you have a mechanical scale like the one on the left, it is a spring inside, so it is a linear system with 2 points, the stiffness constant, and then you are done. If you have a digital software-based, say, scale on the right, then you know nothing, and so you have to carry out many more tests. Okay, so here I try to provide a set of non-inclusive list of open points that we see as authority on artificial intelligence, so regulators' perspective on that. And the big issue is safety assurance. I should say that even with traditional systems, they tend to be very, very complex. Safety assurance is still an issue. The approval procedure, if you go through the documentation, they're quite long, they require a lot of tests. So even with traditional system, it is an issue. It is a bigger issue with AI. There is issue also with explainability. So we mentioned several times, but I would like to stress a concept. So assistance system will not be over, will be part of the market for long years, up to, since now. And for there, you need online explainability because the driver is responsible, but the driver has to know what the car is going to do. So that online explainability, if a manufacturer will go towards an end-to-end approach for AI for level 2, is something that is currently, I would say, a research point, not really completely fulfilled. Whereas for automated driving system, could be fine with offline explainability. So after something has happened, try to go back and see what happened, because there the software the manufacturer is responsible. So you don't need the driver to take over at any time as you would with level 2. There is an issue with robustness, so very non-linear system. They tend to overfit data where they were trained on. It's difficult to introduce strict rules like traffic rules we have mentioned. So alone you will need tons of samples of all the traffic rules that are around in the world in order to make sure that you have statistical evidence that the AI has understood the rules. It will never understand the rules. It will abide, you don't know why, but it will abide by if you provide a sufficient number of examples. Which is the sufficient number of examples is not known. This issue with the fairness, Jan-Pieter has raised the point. So if you have bias in the data, you have bias in the behavior afterwards. So in your data set, the car has been trained to, I don't know, avoid braking before pedestrians crossing the road. But if it faces something new, something slightly different, you have no clue what it's going to do because there is no symbol of a pedestrian, it's just pixels. Energy efficiency, that is also something I mean, to take into account if you need very, very large computational power on a car, then cars still, I mean, are not connected to the network, so they should be self-operated based on the battery, and that might reduce also range. There is an issue with service modification. So if you have a traditional software and you realize there is an issue, then you can change, let's say, afterwards that specific portion of code, and you can do it rather in a safely manner because you know how this code interacts with the other code. So if there is an amendment in the traffic rules, it's something you can, I mean, sort of introduce afterwards. For AI, that's not the case. I mean, in general, end-to-end AI, you will have to retrain the system, and it's basically a new system. So you should undergo a new approval procedure because you change everything. It's very difficult to I mean, confine the learning to one specific amount of neurons or layers. And the interaction between neurons and layers is, if you have mentioned several times, is you know nothing about it. There is the issue with suitability of type approval practices. Here, I mean, the new framework we put together is, I would say, the right step in, I mean, a step into the right direction. But still, I think there is a lot to learn from authorities' side before we can really say AI is here to approach the market. And finally, last but not least, everything is useless if people are not willing to use the technology. So you might come up with the best AI-based AV, we might come up with the best method to assess the AI-based technique as an authority. But if people will not buy that car, will not use that car, then it's all useless. So the way we communicate, both, I would say, as a regulator and as OEMs, is very, very important. Here is the same slide as I was mentioning before in the scale example. So it's the same framework, just a bit reshuffled for the sake of clarity, where I try to map which some of the open points into the pillar for the framework. And there are indeed procedure which, and I specifically refer to audit and simulation, which are the new pillars that can help in case of AI. Simulation allows you easier verification analysis because you can easily change one parameter and see how the system behaves. You have audit, which can support safety assurance and can document which were the design phases. You have monitoring, so after post-market introduction, which can help to support explainability and build trust into the public. But still, there are, I would say, some open items regards to data management, which is not currently covered. Also, there are no dedicated requirements for transparency, which we should go back into the design. But also, I would say, still, if we really want to go into AI, there is a fine-tuning of the text which is needed. And also a big elephant in the room has been recently the publication of the UAI Act, so a gigantic piece of legislation covering AI in general, not on specific to any specific application. And it is a risk-based approach. We could talk about this for a month, but for the sake of our discussion, we need to take into account that the AI Act classified automated vehicles as high-risk system, for which there are a set of dedicated requirements for the specific AI software, including risk management, data governance policy, some human oversight and transparency. And the AI Act will not replace any legislation on automated vehicle, but will complement to cover the AI specific features. And it will be important for us to maintain alignment on that. So to conclude, also going back to the cautious approach proposed before, I think there is no disruptive technology in the field of automated vehicles, because for the very simple reason that you need to prove safety over billions of kilometers. That's the benchmark is very high. That's the human benchmark. So it's pointless that we put in the market something which is less safe than human. So there is no possibility for that. And at the same time, will take with a grain of salt any statement claiming that this new technology will be safer than human, but it has been operated for a couple of thousands of kilometers. It might seem a lot, but it's nothing with regards to what you would need to actually prove safety. AI has not, has many applications right now, but none of those are safety critical. And legislation is more first steps, so AI Act and what we did for the multi-pillar and ATM approach. But still, there is a lot of experience that the stakeholders should build before we actually and I mean, do the extra steps and start to really have those technology into the market. I hope it was sufficiently clear, and then I think I will hand it over to Jan-Pieter once again. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Riccardo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Riccardo, for this very nice overview. So far, we have mainly spoken about the challenges that AI poses. Yeah, maybe that's a bit of a negative perspective, which might not be very fair, because AI also brings a lot of opportunities, especially right now. AI works extremely well. It does very impressive things, but there are some steps that need to be taken in order to use it in safety critical situations. And what we basically have is there's a gap between system engineering and AI. So system engineering defines safety on the symbolic level, whereas AI, especially deep learning, works on the sub-symbolic level. And we need to bridge that gap. And we can bridge that gap from two directions. Starting with AI itself, we can make AI ready for system engineering by combining the best of both worlds. So combining this learning AI and all the impressive advantages that deep learning has with reasoning capabilities of the more symbolic AI. Combine it into hybrid AI. An example of that would be neurosymbolic AI, to have basically the best of both worlds. And what that could, for example, lead to is an automated vehicle that adapts its behavior based on the current context that it's in. So it can reason about what is in the environment, and in this situation, in this scenario, what is the desired behavior? And this desired behavior is then based on grounded on the symbolic level. So we as humans can decide on how the vehicle should behave, and that gives tremendous opportunities as well. So finally, we can, as a society, decide on how we would like vehicles to behave in traffic, based, for example, on human values. So we could identify an ethical goal function to which the vehicle should adhere. So we, as a society, can decide on, hey, how do we want vehicles in traffic to behave, which is, I think, a tremendous opportunity. But in addition, bridging the gap from the other direction, make system engineering ready for AI. So right now, the way we judge performance is by doing tests to see if the system satisfies the requirements. But given the complexity of the system itself and the environment, we need to learn more about the system itself. And one way of doing that, for example, is by having a model of the system. In this case, in this example, a fitness for purpose model. Such a model would allow us to reason about the performance of the AI inside the system and the system itself, and thus guide which tests we should do based on the model and the test results. Such a model would be based on the quality and timeliness of information that flows through the system, depending on the input from the environment, known failure modes, and the modeling of the system itself. And here's an example of such a fitness for purpose model for a pedestrian detection. So based on the target operational domain, an information flow model of the system itself, and the known failure modes of such a system, we can reason about what the performance would be in certain conditions. But also we can reason backwards, saying, well, when does the system not perform, and how likely is that to occur? which in the end would give us a much better handle on understanding what to test, what the performance of the system is, and how high the risk of the system. To conclude, if you would like to know more about what TNO does in this regard, there is, of course, the streetwise position paper, which is about scenario-based safety assessment, which essentially, in light of this session, is about bridging the semantic gap between a data set, data, and on the symbolic level, the ODD description in terms of scenarios. And if you would like to learn more about the fitness for purpose approach to verification and validation of AI-based systems, there's a paper coming out. It will be available soon in the SCE Journal of Connected and Automated Vehicles.
Yes, thank you, Jan-Pieter. Which brings us to Olaf at the wrap-up.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for both presentations. I think these presentations made really very clear that a safety assessment of systems that include AI are very complex, and that really large challenges are there. And what I very much like about these presentations, that these challenges become very concrete, really pinpoint each of them, because if we pinpoint those challenges, then we can also come up with solutions for them. And that's also what has been done today, that each of these challenges have been mentioned, but we also look to how do we overcome that. So what is, at one hand, the difficulty of dealing with that, and what should we do to overcome that difficulty? In the view of the regulator presented by Riccardo, I very much like the fact that the new assessment testing method that is being proposed and that we very much look into already is a kind of, I would say, technology agnostic. So it is feasible also to apply that method to AI. And some of the challenges that Jan-Pieter mentioned, like we should not leave AI for the validation phase, is already covered in the NATM file, because we have some a process in place on in-service monitoring and control that also deals with the continuous assessment of such systems. Well, it's clear that that might still not be enough, and that we should also look to the AI Act of the EU to complement the ADS approval. And also very good to see that we get so much insights in the use of AI and the opportunities that AI faces, that we can get into the best of two worlds. So both getting to learn from data, but also being able to reason on top of that. So a large promise in that sense, and also maybe even a requirement for the successful application of automated driving is in hybrid AI. So really nice conclusion of this four Meet the Expert sessions. I would like to thank you for that.
Final slide and the final few minutes of these sessions. So first, thank you very much, Jan-Pieter, Olaf, and also Riccardo for this session and all the preparation and the nice explanation. This is the end of our 4 Meet the Expert sessions, and on behalf of all the experts who joined me in this in these challenges towards automated driving, I would like to thank you all very much also for joining. I really liked it, but we are also curious what you thought about this and how interesting this was. So we will send out a survey afterwards, and we hope that you would like to fill it in and give us some feedback. Does that bring us to the end? Yes, for these sessions, but we will continue. After the summer holidays, TNO will organize an academy on all the topics we discussed also in these 4 sessions. And we hope that you will join us again also in these sessions. I will put some extra information and the survey in the Q&A, and we hope that you will answer that also to bring a bit more focus in these sessions. And I really hope that we will see you again after the summer, somewhere in the autumn, to join me again in this academy with these experts, and that we make an extra step towards automated driving. For now, thank you very much and have a very nice day. Goodbye.